Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and today's video is going to be a crazy one. In today's video, we have international champion, multiple-time regional champion Machoke going 20-5 in the Gray League with Shadow Machoke. Now, should Shadow Machoke be used under any circumstances? Absolutely not. It has only fighting moves: Karate Chop, Cross Chop, and Dynamic Punch. But that makes this run from one of this game's most talented trainers even more impressive. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's watch Marto dominating the competition with Shadow Machoke. Hopping into game number 1, picking up a very nice lead, Shadow Machoke into Galarian Moltres. Moltres is going to be switching out into a safe switch Shadow Kanto Marowak, which will swiftly be answered with the Shadow Talonflame. This Talonflame is rocking Flame Charge to be able to ramp up its Incinerates. Marowaks love to bait Bone Club in this matchup, but the risk of a Rock Slide landing and flipping switch advantage is just far too much of a gamble. So Talonflame is going to put up both shields and look for the full Incinerate farm down. Talonflame exits up so much energy and boosted. In comes Credilli, and Credilli's not going to have a very nice day as Talonflame has back-to-back boosted flies. That's devastating damage. In comes Machoke. Quick switch by the opponent into Galarian Moltres. Machoke gonna go for the Cross Chop bait. The Cross Chop will be no-shielded. Machoke is gonna make it to Cross Chop number 2. And just like that, the opponent is gonna be forced to burn their shield. They can fire off the fly and knock out the Shadow Machoke, but the damage has been done. Shadow Talonflame has a fly stored, and once this Moltres is out of the way, there's nothing that can stop Furret. In comes Talonflame. There is the fly, locked and loaded. That's going to be good night to the Moltres. Back in comes the Credilli. Credilli will get to fire off a last-second charge attack, so they will get to see the final Pokemon, but in comes the Furret. One Sucker Punch of damage, and that's a good game. Hopping into the next match, oh, what a lead. Shadow Machoke into Bastiodon. Opponent safe switches into Malamar. No direct response available to Malamar on this team, so Machoke will fire off the Cross Chop. Cross Chop absolutely shreds that Malamar, and now in comes Furret. Furret should be able to survive a superpower from this range. Furret hangs on by the narrowest of margins. Look at the matchup knowledge by Marto, and he's able to maintain switch advantage. In comes Bastiodon to snipe down, but back in comes Machoke. It's going to be a Toedscruel in the back, and this game is over. The opponent opted for a more alignment-focused playstyle, and that's going to backfire as it's Machoke on Bastiodon, Shadow Talonflame on the Toedscruel. Toedscruel goes for the wrap, but it's simply far too late. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Oh, we see a nightmare lead in the next match. Shadow Machoke into Giratina. Safe switch into Furret, and the Giratina is not switching out. Furret going to be putting up the shield as Giratina will go for the Dragon Claw. Here comes a switch from the opponent, and it's Azumarill, and this is a problem. Both Azumarill and Giratina break the Talonflame Machoke core. These battles are clipped from his live stream, so I'm not quite sure what caused the footage to cut out there, but the good news is we're right back in the action. Trailblaze is going to land. That's some pretty significant damage. Furret in so much trouble. Furret puts up the shield. It's the Hydro Pump from the Azumarill, and the Azumarill resigns the match. They had no idea the Giratina was going to sweep, but thank goodness they quit too early, and their Giratina will never know how close it was to just outright winning that game. Hopping into the next match, it's the Battle of Shadows, Shadow Machoke into Shadow Marowak. Marowak is going to respect Dynamic Punch, but now they're going to get hit with the Cross Chop. Cross Chop is going to be double shielded from the opponent, and they realize that they're not going to get a farm down, so they're forced to fire off the Bone Club and take the KO. In comes Talonflame, which would love nothing more than to double shield, farm all the way down, and with 100 energy, should be able to sweep anything not named Carbink or Bastiodon. Opponent pivots out, they send in Corsola, and Talonflame gets to bank 100 energy, and out comes Furret. That is devastating for the opponent, as 100 Talonflame energy is going to be an absolute nightmare. They really have to hope they have one of those Rock-type Pokemon in the back. It looks like Furret is just going to go for a full farm down. Furret wanting to exit with 100 energy. So Furret exits very low on health, but ready to boost itself up. In comes their final Pokemon, and it's revealed to be Credilli. Credilli going to get hit with the back-to-back Trailblazes. Trailblaze not going to do a lot of damage, but the goal here is just to put it into range for the Talonflame. So Furret is going to throw one more Sucker Punch, and there is the combo play right on cue. Talonflame, Flame Charge, picks up the knockout. In comes Marowak. The Shock and Awe campaign, Shadow Talonflame energy, so deadly, and Marto is able to get that win. Hopping into the next match, leading Shadow Machoke into Shadow Scizor. Shadow Scizor's bullet punches are no joke. Machoke does have really nice stats, but obviously the big issue that prevents it from seeing any kind of meaningful play is the fact that it has no coverage moves to speak of. But even with its nice stats, these bullet punches still add up. Machoke gets to the Dynamic Punch, looking to try and take a knockout onto Scizor, but Scizor says no and puts up the shield. In comes Talonflame, there's a pivot into Credilli. Talonflame just gonna go for the Fly. Fly will do a lot of damage. Talonflame being up energy means that it outpaces. That is big damage onto Credilli. And now in comes Furret to absorb the energy and look to get the Sucker Punch farm down. Rock Tomb is going to connect. Credilli hoping that it makes another Rock Tomb, but it simply does not. Back in comes the Scizor, and Scizor has energy. The no shield from Furret, a Night Slash will not knock out. Furret is barely able to hang on, and in the back, the opponent reveals they have Fearow. Fearow going to be able to absorb both of these Swifts since they are debuffed, but Fearow, it's not known for its bulk, so even though it can survive it, this now puts it in range of getting farmed down by the Talonflame. Talonflame going to be shielding up the Drill Peck. The Incinerate is going to take the knockout. Opponent realizes it's game over, and they will concede the match. Nice lead for Machoke in the next match, leading into Guzzlord. Opponent is going to save switch into Corviknight, and oh my goodness, out comes Shadow Talonflame. Corviknight save switch can be deadly against a lot of teams, but if you see a Talonflame, you basically just lose because you are in so much trouble. Talonflame going to go for an Undercharge, wanting to leave it in a range where it can get an extra Incinerate. The matchup knowledge by Marto is unreal. Beautiful Undercharge that allows him to make a boosted Fly into the Guzzlord and pressure a shield. Guzzlord does get the full farm down. Out comes Machoke. Guzzlord does have enough for a Sludge Bomb or a Dragon Claw. It is going to be the Sludge Bomb that does some pretty sizable damage. And now what are they going to have in the back? Cross Chop from the Machoke is going to land, taking the knockout. In the back is Clodsire. And the good news is, if Furret has two shields to work with, this matchup is always going to be a win. So the opponent, they're going to probably try and play it out to the bitter end, but Furret, it's just never going to be in any danger of getting farmed down here because it can always tank a move, and Poison Sting just does such little damage. So Furret did go for the Swift at first just to get the turn back, and now will go for the Trailblaze. Opponent has to realize there's no way out as the shield comes up from Furret, and these boosted Sucker Punches get it to Clodsire lower and lower. Clodsire gonna fire off another move. Clodsire holding out till the bitter end. Will we see the switch to Machoke to get the farm down? Oh no, the bad manners catch. He stopped tapping to get the catch on Machoke. He said, "You're not wasting my time, I'm wasting your time." Oh my goodness, what a play from Marto. Opponent, they knew the game was over. They could have top lefted, they didn't, and Marto makes him pay. We see a familiar lead in the next match, Shadow Machoke into Shadow Scizor once again. Machoke is going to put up the shield because it's able to win the ones. Scizor does end up, oh, nice catch on a Dusclops. Scizor baits with the Night Slash, gets the Cross Chop catch onto the Dusclops, but now Machoke rebanks the move and out comes Furret. Because, unsurprisingly, if you're running a fighter like Machoke that has no ghost coverage, you're going to need ghost coverage in the back. So the opponent does waste the energy, but Machoke being able to rebank it, and now Furret being able to effectively neutralize the Dusclops will make life uncomfortable. Dusclops has thrown enough charge attacks to burn the switch timer, so if Dusclops wants out, it will have the ability to do so, and there is the switch back into Scizor. Scizor going to get hit with the Swift. Swift will not get a knockout, and that's a bit unfortunate as Furret doesn't want to shield and burn the final shield to save that energy, so instead, it's just going to get KO'd, and in comes Talonflame. But if there's a Scizor lead, odds are they should have a very good check to fire in the back. And there it is. It's going to be a Azumarill, and this is not what Talonflame was hoping to see. as these bubbles are just absolutely criminal damage onto the Shadow Talonflame. Fly is going to get the shield. Talonflame gets to another Fly, but this is not going to put it into cross chop range. The Fly is going to land. There's the switch into Dusclops. Dusclops snipes down. There's no longer a win con. An unfortunate way for this team to take its first loss. Even with the good alignment of Furret onto Dusclops, the Dusclops spam, being able to burn the switch timer was absolutely key for the opponent. And unfortunately, things are looking dire in the next match, leading Shadow Machoke into Wigglytuff. Considering there's a Furret in the back that also loses to Wigglytuff, Machoke can't really afford to switch out, as Furret's matchup would be worse. Cross chop after cross chop is going to be thrown at the Wigglytuff, grabbing the shield, and now out comes Talonflame. Opponent ends up pivoting into Shadow Marowak, so they are clearly exceedingly weak to the Talonflame. Talonflame's Flame Charge does get shielded. Talonflame continues to farm. This is always going to be the Bone Club bait, and there it is. Talonflame will get the outpace, and Talonflame opts to go for the Flame Charge. This sacrifices Talonflame's pacing, as now it's going to be 3 to the next move, but it means these Incinerates are going to hit incredibly hard. Talonflame is going to put up the shield. That means that Incinerate is going to land. Talonflame, no, doesn't get the farm down. The stored energy from Wigglytuff, it gets to the move, it takes the knockout, but in the back, the win con has arrived, and its name is Gastrodon. That was basically what Furret was hoping for. A Gastrodon, a Galarian Corsola, something like that. And Furret will be able to take home victory, as Furret is going to boost itself up with the Trailblaze. And now Wigglytuff, normally a counter to Furret, but not today. Furret's boosted Swift takes the knockout and secures the win. Oh, absolute terrible lead in the next match. Shadow Machoke into Shadow Dusknoir. The safe switch into Furret is going to be answered with the Shadow Scizor. Scizor knows that it can survive a Swift, but if a Swift lands, that can potentially set up a farm down for the Furret. Furret should always be no shielding here to try and call a Night Slash, because a Night Slash is not going to knock out. If they go for the Trailblaze, it will do more damage, but a Night Slash will not take a knockout, and that's very valuable for the Furret. Furret now gets a second Swift, and it ends up being a simultaneous KO. So now, it's a decision. Do you bring in the Talonflame? Do you bring in the Machoke? Choosing to send in the Talonflame into the Dusknoir, and that is going to work out perfectly. Talonflame puts up the shield as Dusknoir will fire off that Shadow Punch, and now Talonflame can ramp up its damage with Flame Charge. Specifically, the Shadow having Flame Charge is really nice because the Shadow Incinerates already do so much damage. Talonflame exits with a boosted Fly. Oh, in the back is the Dedenne. Almost clicked the Fly. Thankfully, the Flame Charge went off. In comes Machoke. Machoke is about to cross-chop at the Dedenne. The Dedenne doesn't want that to happen, and they will resign the match. Dream lead in the next match. Shadow Machoke into Lickitung. They save switch Shadow Scizor, and Talonflame's ready to burn it all down. Talonflame gets that full farm down. In comes a Blastoise looking to snipe with rollouts, but unfortunately, this is just complete hard counter for the opponent. There's nothing they can do. There's Machoke on their Lickitung, there's a Furret on their Blastoise, and they resign that match incredibly quickly. Very bad lead in the next match, or at least what I imagine is a bad lead. Shadow Machoke into the Murkrow. This is a purified Murkrow. Murkrow's pacing and damage output is absolutely incredible. Machoke is able to grab the first shield, but look at the peck damage. Machoke is going to be losing charge stack priority, but Marto wants to invest in the Machoke, so the shield does come up. Does he decide to aggressively pivot into the Talonflame, or does he let himself get farmed down? He's going to let himself get farmed down, but that's a big energy head start. In comes the Talonflame. Incinerate is going to register. One more Incinerate will be able to take the knockout. Talonflame now going to be answered with a Credilli safe switch, and without shields to hide behind, Talonflame is going to need to bail out of this matchup. So the Fly is going to land. There is the switch to Furret, and Furret will instantly be debuffed by Rock Tomb. As opposed to the previous game where a farm down was possible, a farm down will not be possible for the Furret. Furret goes for the farm down, and unfortunately it cannot get there. Rock Tomb lands, Furret now very low, and the opponent actually stops tapping. The opponent wants Marto to knock them out so that way they can get farm either with the Murkrow or their final Pokemon. The undercharged Swift will still knock out. In comes the Marowak, and this is going to be a tough one. Will the Marowak get the catch? Talonflame farms up, waits the turn. In comes the Murkrow, and it had a move. Oh my goodness, he avoids the catch, but Murkrow energy too deadly, and the opponent will take the win. Hopping into the final match, picking up a bit of a tricky lead, Shadow Machoke into Corviknight. Machoke tries for an air cutter catch onto Furret. Its energy can't really do much here, but the opponent banks a ton of energy and sends in their own Furret. This is a pretty massive surprise. They are so far behind on energy that Marto's Furret could very well run away with the game now, as the opponent will win charge attack priority, but their Trailblaze is not going to do much, whereas this boosted Swift is basically going to pick up the knockout. The Swift is going to land one more Sucker Punch, and Furret is able to win alignment. Back in comes the Corviknight. Corviknight forced to throw energy, but now they've lost switch advantage, and that means it's about to be Shadow Talonflame time. They do get the boost, but they're going to be met with the Shadow Talonflame. Talonflame will put up the shield. Talonflame, unfortunately, does get baited with the air cutter. There's another boost, and there's a switch into Machoke. Machoke firing off the cross chop. Cross chop is going to get the shield. In the back is going to be a Shadow Scizor, and the opponent is running a team that is ABA weak to fire, and they're about to get punished by Shadow Talonflame. Not only that, they cannot get the farm down. The pacing on Machoke. Cross chop takes the KO. Back in comes Corviknight. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. All in all, this was an absolutely bonkers run by Marto. So very well played to him. He oftentimes likes to run really spicy Pokemon just to try and have some fun, give himself an extra challenge. So getting a 20-5 run in the Great League at a pretty solid elo as well is exceedingly impressive. Now, Shadow Machoke, it has all the stats to be a very relevant Pokemon, but unfortunately, until it gets any kind of coverage move, it's basically not going to be a usable Pokemon whatsoever. And that's due to the fact that if you don't have coverage, you're really not going to have a lot of success in the Go Battle League. Now, Marto, he's one of the best players in the world. As I mentioned at the start, he's an international champion, a multiple-time regional champion. He got third at a previous world championships, so he's able to make just about anything work. But hey, 20-5 with the Shadow Machoke, I imagine it's probably never been done before. So with how fun and how dynamic these battles were and the crazy games that ensued, I knew I had to shoutcast them because they were some unbelievably fun battles. So many thanks to Marto for sending in this footage. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.